Hey everyone, Intel stock is now trading below $20 per share and it's down significantly in 2024, down below and near 52-week lows. But that's not the only reason why investors are talking about Intel stock, but primarily they're talking about Intel stock for bad reasons. So I'm going to go over the items that are causing investors to discuss Intel stock, some of the things that has investors disappointed about Intel, and what it could mean for Intel stock investors. So let's dive right in.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
So in addition to Intel's falling stock price, there are some negative factors impacting sentiment for Intel stock investors. And one of those primary things is that they are suspending the dividend. As management saying here, they are taking the added step of suspending the dividend at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Now, a dividend payment is something that passive income investors come to rely on. And if a company is not paying a dividend, that might be a deal breaker for some investors. I'm not that way. I don't count on dividends because I'm not in that time horizon for my investing journey. But some investors, some passive income investors, completely rely and only invest in dividend stocks. So by pausing and suspending the dividend, you cause all of those investors to sell. And you create some panic among investors that are now more concerned about the company's liquidity because it's pausing the dividend. Typically, companies pause the dividend when they're in a cash crunch, when cash is difficult to come by, when they don't have enough. And so that is what's happening with Intel. They've spent tens of billions of dollars in this massive business transition and manufacturing capacity expansion, and that's causing their cash flow to really diminish. And now they've had to take the step of pausing the dividend. Still, they are reiterating their long-term commitment to a competitive dividend as cash flows improve to sustainably higher levels. So they're saying they're not going to pause this dividend forever, and they fully expect cash flows to return to sustainably higher levels. And when they do so, Intel will resume the dividend payment. So more bad news for Intel stock investors. The company said that while we expect to deliver sequential revenue growth through the rest of the year, the pace of the recovery will be slower than expected, which is reflected in our third quarter outlook. So all throughout 2024, management had been saying the second half of the year will be stronger than the first half of the year. The industry is rebounding and we're in a great position to benefit from that rebound. But now, 6 months into the year, Intel says, you know what? Turns out we're not going to recover as expected in the second half of the year. I mean, we are, but it's just not going to be as robust as we were expecting. And so we're lowering our growth expectations. We're lowering our growth expectations for the third and fourth quarters because we don't expect the turnaround to come as quickly as we expected. They now expect flat to up 5% quarter over quarter revenue growth in the fourth quarter. And they see this because improved client inventory levels exiting third quarter, their fourth quarter will come in at the high end of that range. So the third quarter will be a struggle for Intel, but the fourth quarter, they're typically growing their revenue by 0 to 5% in Q4 from Q3, and they expect this year to be at the high end of that range. So they're hoping that coming out of the fourth quarter, that they will be back to their expected rates of growth. So this rate of growth, the slowdown is expected to be roughly 3 to 5 months, and they expect that to recover at the end of this year or at the end of Q4. And part of that recovery will be on the back of new product launches. The Intel 20A is being readied for production next quarter. And then Intel 18A, the production wafer start volumes will happen in the first half of 2025. So all of these investments Intel's been making over the last few years, they're really going to start to come to fruition in the back half of this year, in the fourth quarter specifically, and then starting in 2025, and then going on to 2026 and 2027 and beyond. That's when they'll really start to reap the benefits of all of these massive investments they're putting out right now. The company saying the launch of their 18A will be their fifth node in 4 years, completing a historic pace of design and process innovation and returning Intel to process leadership. So as you might already know, Intel has been behind the innovative leadership. They've fallen behind competitors like Taiwan Semiconductor and others in terms of the latest generation technology because they failed to invest as aggressively or as effectively as other manufacturing semiconductor companies. But now with these recent investments, they hope that they corrected their underinvestment. And they're hoping that the launch of the 18A, which will start in the first half of 2025, will bring Intel up to par. That's the hope. But as you know, Intel has disappointed investors many, many times before. So the probability of hitting this leadership role or leadership position is not certain. It remains to be seen. And given their disappointments in the past, it's reasonable for investors to be skeptical for Intel making progress here. So their investments in a global footprint of leading edge capacity continues to weigh on near-term profitability, but long-term they position us to profitably participate in the largest and fastest growing parts of the semiconductor market. And this is what I've been discussing when I make my case for Intel stock as an investment. As you know, I have Intel stock rated as a buy. I've had Intel stock rated as a buy all year. It's been one of my more disappointing stock picks. But this was my long-standing thesis, is that the semiconductor market is going to grow robustly over the next 5, 10, and 15 years. Intel is investing aggressively to participate in that market. And they're getting helped by the US government, which is giving Intel tens of billions of dollars to help facilitate that manufacturing expansion, that manufacturing investment in research and development. So the timing is perfect. Now, Intel management has been ineffective in the last 5 years and the last 10 years in terms of process leadership, as they admit themselves. So there is skepticism whether they'll be able to achieve this goal. But the goal itself, I think, is a reasonable goal. I think it's reasonable to invest, to capitalize on this massive opportunity for Intel. They're in a position where this is something that's in their zone. This is in their area of expertise. So it makes sense for them to invest in this. But as an investor, you have to remember that they haven't been very effective. And so you've got to weigh those two things against each other. It's a high-risk situation, but the rewards are also really great if Intel can execute, which is a big if. So this is one of those high-risk, high-reward situations for long-term investors. Did you know that over 90% of the people that watch my channel are not subscribed? It'll really help support my channel if you hit that subscribe button. And oh, by the way, one of the benefits of being subscribed is that I take requests from subscribers more often than I do from non-subscribers. So if you prefer that benefit, please subscribe to the channel.